welcome to the sixth talk of second season of Tiny Lab Talks. This is a informal 30 minutes conversation with invited American specialists visiting University of Aveiro, promoted by University of Aveiro American Corner to share knowledge in an accessible and engaging way. The talks are live streamed and one on the University of Aveiro's YouTube channel. I am João Correia. I work at the press office of the University of Aveiro. I'm an ex-journalist and I have some experience in radio broadcasting. I'm hosting with my colleagues Elsa Santos and a podcast produced by University of Aveiro named Podcast Rua Descomplica. I'm only a fan of jazz and a listener. I want to give a warm welcome to both of our guests today. I'm here joined by Gilad Hekselman and Miguel Mandrak. Gilad Hekselman is one of the leading voices in jazz guitar. He's based in New York and he tours globally as the greatest artist with the greatest artists in jazz. His record Downhill From Here, featuring Larry Garandia and Marcus Gilmore, has received rave reviews, especially from Downbeat magazine. Gilad has also built an extensive recording resume as a guest artist and collaborator. Gilad is the recipient of multiple prestigious recognitions and awards. Miguel Mandrak is a guitarist, pianist and composer with a bachelor's degree in jazz guitar. He began his musical career at Jogra, a music school in our region of Aveiro, where he developed a connection to jazz. He's currently completing a master's degree in jazz performance at University of Aveiro. In 2024, he released his debut solo album Dreams and Vision, blending diverse sounds and musical influences. In 2025, he was invited to compose the original soundtrack for the miniseries Between Strings. Just about our topic today, 100 Years with John Coltrane and Miles Davis. About Miles Davis, just one idea published in allmusic.com. Miles Davis is a monumental innovator, icon, and maverick trumpeter. Miles Davis helped define the course of jazz as well as popular culture in the 20th century, bridging the gap between bebop, modern music, funk, and fusion. About Coltrane, also in the allmusic.com website, a towering musical figure of the 20th century, ex-saxophonist John Coltrane reset parameters of jazz during his decade as a leader. At outset, he was a vigorous practitioner of hard bop, gaining prominence as a sideman for Miles Davis before setting out as a leader in 1957, when he released Coltrane on Prestige and Blue Train on Blue Note. Let's start with our talk. First question, what was your reaction for your feeling when you first heard Coltrane and Miles? What was the consequences in the influences in your music?
I first heard Miles, or at least the first time I think I heard Miles was on I think he played with Marcus Miller. So my journey to jazz was through fusion. So my friend sent me a recording of Marcus Miller that had Miles on it, and that was my first exposure to him. But until I went to high school where they had a jazz program and they had a jazz history lesson, I didn't really know who Miles was. But my first kind of link to what he did was the two records. One of them was Feed the Kilimanjaro,
Yeah.
which is still, I think, my favorite Miles record. just partially because of music and partially because of the nostalgic part of it, and in a silent way. I was I got into that mostly because when I was growing up, I was studying Indian classical music, and I was into John McLaughlin. So I saw that he was on that record, and that's how I got into that one. But yeah, you know, anybody who knows anything about jazz knows the weight of those two individuals and how important their music is to anyone who cares about it, about this music, about jazz music, like American music. Um, Coltrane, somebody who I transcribed quite a bit and was a big part of my coming up and learning how to play the guitar was by trying to imitate Coltrane. So he had a tremendous influence on me, and some of his repertoire is some of the songs that he wrote that are very challenging harmonically. I spent many hours trying to find ways to study and bring my own voice to. So both very influential artists on me for sure.
Miguel?
Yeah, when I heard Miles for the first time, I heard the standard, kind of flute. And yeah, what I loved on Miles was his sound, and that always fascinated me because I want to pursue my own sound. And Miles is a great example of his own sound, his signature sound. And yeah, then I started to hear a lot more of Miles, and I heard Beaches Brew, which is a very hard album to hear for the first time, but I love that album. And actually, one of the songs, Sanctuary, I played on and released on my first album, actually. Because I just love how the melody was created, and also Beaches Brew has these things that influence, like I believe, mostly the rock generation that was coming at the time, and it's funny because I discovered later that Miles actually on Beaches Brew, alongside Theo Mancero, they actually they recorded like a bunch of hours of those sessions, and then Theo Mancero
Beaches Brew sessions.
And then Theo just listened to them again, and then he took like pieces and pieces, and then he made and that's what rock musicians do also. The studio at the time was not applied to jazz, and I believe that jazz musicians, if they knew that at the time that Miles did that, probably they wouldn't like that. They would probably reject, I think. I don't know, what do you think?
I have no idea. Yeah, it's hard to speculate. I'm sure that there will be a diverse response to it. I think one other thing that is important to say about both those guys is how they lived artistic lives that their art never stayed the same for too long. And Coltrane, relatively had a short life. But even in that short life, you can hear like how it slowly phases from this, transitions from this part to this part. I mean, it's not separated; they're all continuous. But yeah, and of course, Miles is famous for have had changed music several times. So that's a really inspiring thing for me. Just like people like that. Not to say some artists they are the same for their whole career, and that's deep in its own way.
Yeah.
But I think it's admirable how they just kept finding new directions and never feeling like they have to stick to what's expected of them, but just follow their own gut and their own intuition.
And Coltrane, I think he started to be more known when he started to play with Miles, the quintet, his quintet. It's curious because they start kind of bebop,
Yeah.
and then they change, especially Miles, change the structure of jazz and
Yes.
music he was composing. So I think 3 or more times probably with the silent way, with a kind of silent way, then which is brew, and then on the corner probably it was another change of Miles,
Yes.
Miles music.
It's all continuous, you know. Historians like to separate things like that.
Yeah.
Like one day he's that thing, but that's not how artists function, you know.
Yeah.
The things they just develop naturally in the same way that you don't define. I mean, I guess you could define a phase of a child's life, but like
Yeah.
it's like you see it go slowly from one thing to another, you know.
So they are two legends, Coltrane and Miles. And do you think they are still so influential today as they were 30 years ago, probably? Miguel?
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, they had impact at the time, and they still remain in this generation. At least for me, I mean, when I actually don't know what to say because they are such legends, and legends will always live, you know, and in 200 years, you know, from here, you know, you people will always know who Miles Davis was and John Coltrane was. I believe in that, yeah, for sure.
Gilad? You think so? Good.
About what he said or about what you asked?
About the influence of.
I think they still have
Coltrane
influence.
and Miles
I don't know
today.
if there's a way to measure if it's the same as 20 or 30 years ago, because I guess 30 years ago, you know, Miles has just passed, so that's more recent that he was around. It's I don't know what's the point of trying to measure that, but they're definitely still very highly influential. So
Because nowadays jazz evolved to some kinds of jazz, inserting some influences of rock and other kind
yeah,
of
Miles did
music.
that.
Miles did that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there you go.
And A Love Supreme also, yeah, I think that, I don't know what is your opinion, Gilad, but I think that Love Supreme had more impact on rock than jazz, but it had
Okay,
also impact on jazz. But I think that at the time, musicians like Jimi Hendrix and the Jimi Hendrix Experience and Led Zeppelin, who were formed around the same time, maybe 68, 67, I'm not sure. But I think that they incorporated the improvisation, you know.
Yeah.
And I believe that Coltrane influenced them in a way, not in a direct way, you know, very indirectly, but yeah. And actually, I want to say something that I'm not sure if you knew. I discovered the other day, and I was like, God damn. And actually, Ravi Shankar, the sitar player. We all know him because the Beatles knew them, and it seems like when the Beatles discovered him, Ravi Shankar became known. But actually,
In fact, it was George Harrison, I think, that discovered him.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that because Mario Delgado, my professor teacher, he told me that actually the Birds band from the USA, they actually, when they traveled to UK, they showed to the Beatles some music of Ravi Shankar, and then George Harrison became such a fan that he took lessons with him. But actually, Ravi Shankar went to USA back in mid 50s or so, and he toured in USA, and he came to he went and he had contact, you know, with jazz musicians like Dizzy Gillespie and John Coltrane. I don't know if you knew that, but actually John Coltrane was so influenced by Ravi Shankar, Ravi Shankar's music, that he actually named his son Ravi.
Right.
Because
I
Ravi Shankar.
figured that must be connected to that. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting.
And I didn't know that, but and Indian music was so important to him that A Love Supreme represents that, because in Love Supreme, no, let me just go back a bit. So at the time when he released Giant Steps, right, he was very worried about geometry, finding the symmetry of music, right? I think. That's what he did in a piece of paper, right? With a circle of words, right? He tried to find the geometry in music, and then that led him to create Coltrane changes. Then I think that at that time in '59, when he created those Coltrane changes, he also recorded Kind of Blue with Miles Davis, and at the time modal jazz had so impact that Coltrane, the system that he created was very strict, you know. The Coltrane changes, you have to play that, you have to be virtuosic, but you just play that. And in modal jazz you actually become free to express yourself. And I believe that what he did in A Love Supreme, he proved to all people that he could just express whatever he wanted, you know, infinite possibilities on just a pedal drum. And what he did on Acknowledgement, which is the first song of the album, he played like a phrase after his solo. He played a phrase in all 12 keys, you know, this motif. I think it was like, no, sorry, that's your song.
Easily confused.
No. Yeah, but he played like this pentatonic kind of thing, and he played on all 12 keys. Yeah, no. Actually, no. It's
Oh, yeah, of course.
and then he played on all 12 keys, and he proved that he could like play all keys in just one pedal note.
And Elvis Coltrane was very influenced also by Indian music.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I talk. I know I talk too much. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Do you agree if I say that the major influence of Coltrane in jazz saxophone phrasing was the changes in saxophone phrasing, and the major influence of Miles was in jazz structure and styling? Gilad?
Let me see the question again.
Probably.
Probably true, among other things.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
That's what you're talking about. Also about
it's
Coltrane.
like it's in the head of the eyes of the beholder. You know.
Yeah.
You can take one thing out of the culture, and another person can take another thing. So I don't know. I don't know if it's so specific like that. Both of those guys are such whole artists that
But in fact, you are also about Coltrane talking about the changing in structure of his music. Okay.
When he arrived to Love Supreme, he became so free to express whatever he did, and meditations is an extreme example of that. He went so far that I can quite even understand what he did there. I quite frankly didn't heard the whole album because I didn't understand. I hope that some few years later I can understand. Yeah.
What do you think about especially about Miles? What do you think about the changing in music he made in 70s with Beaches Brew and Corner and Doo-Wop, the last album?
Those are two very different periods. I mean,
the Doo-Wop is very influenced by hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
what do I think about it? In what sense? I mean,
in a sense, there probably some could say, well, this is not jazz.
Oh, who cares?
Miles is crazy. He's not a jazz man anymore.
I don't care. Just music. It's beautiful. It's people always like to put things in boxes.
Yeah.
But all these great artists, the art is more powerful than all these boxes. So they just do their thing, and then people try to put a label on the new thing.
Yeah.
This is not that. Who cares? Just let people do what they want to do. Let people be expressive. If you don't like it, great. Listen to the other thing. Like, who cares?
You think the same?
Yeah, man. I mean, I love music. I came to music not to make jazz or make rock or something like that. I want to pursue a sound, and the sound may suffer changes from time, like Miles did. Miles was trying always to push, and he back again. He was so used to change the music scene back in the days, and yeah, I mean that's what I want to do also, But what was the question again? Sorry.
About the changes that Miles brought to music in the 70s.
What did he brought? He brought a lot of things, but quite frankly, I think that we have said it.
Yeah.
The Beaches Brew influence and all that. Yeah,
and probably besides Beaches Brew,
mm-hmm.
probably it was probably he made one more great change in jazz, or two great changes in jazz with the doo-wop and on the corner.
Yeah, I believe that on the corner it was much funkier, right?
Yeah.
Than Beaches Brew. Beaches Brew was more like rock grooves and things like that. I believe that he changed to funk because he didn't want to become an artist for a white audience. So he pursued funk because he wanted to be a black. He wanted to have a black audience, and so he changed to funk. But then he was so used to change music that he stopped. He had like a breakout, and he went silent for 5 years, right? 5 or 6 years. I'm not sure.
Not sure also, but
but yeah, and I believe that after that he really stopped worrying about want to change the sound again, and so yeah, I believe that Miles then was more worried about developing his signature sound and make a song like his signature sound. I'm not sure if you quite agree on this.
I don't think I don't have a way to know. I would have to ask him.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, thank you for being here. Thank you for you both for participating in this tiny lab talk. See you next time. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.